Oh gosh, Dara Griffin, you're awesome. I love you. I'm just going to just say that. And most people here, I think, have probably had training from you before, but we're so happy to welcome you here. And I'll just say a little bit about your bio, that you have been involved with Strengthening Families movement for a long time, since 2008, and so many project launch grantees across the country. You've been working with families and helping them engage with families and communities, doing the cafe approach. You've consulted with family strengthening arena for years. And before that, it's always wonderful to know that you were a sales and marketing professional in human resources and pharmaceutical industries. And you have a bachelor's in science degree in education and social policy. And I just am so appreciative of you being here. And I will be happy to monitor the chat for us today during the training. And thank you for kicking off our New Year training for us, Dara. Welcome. Take it away.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Leah, and thank you, everybody, for being here. I just want to say happy 2021. We made it through 2020. That's just a lot to celebrate right there. So I just want to acknowledge that 2020 was an interesting year, a lot of duality. We're in 2021, feeling hopeful. I am. And I just wanted to acknowledge that for everyone today. I'm going to share my screen in a little bit, but before I do that, I am going to ask that you unmute your video. The reason why I'm asking you to do that is because it's really, really hard to train to black boxes. I can't see your reactions. I can't feel the energy from seeing a face connected to what we're saying and connecting to each other. And so I'm just going to ask that if you're able to do that, please do that. I understand if you can, or if you're in an environment that makes it tough to do that. But as a trainer and as a person, trying to connect with you is just difficult when it's just black boxes. So thank you for helping me out with that. I'm from a tradition where call and response is important, and that responding to what people are saying is very it's meaningful, and it honors and respects the other person. And we'll get into that today around knowledge of parenting and child development when it comes to this called serve and return as well. So serve and return is very much like call and response. And we're going to get into that a little bit today. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. So we are talking about knowledge of parenting and child development today. And this protective factor is like a two for one. It's a two-part protective factor, and we'll get into that a little bit. But for this one, we also say being a great parent is part natural and it is part learned.
Okay, nasa picture na ako eh.
So here's a couple of setup slides. I think all of us have been doing Zoom for a while. We probably don't need this. So I'm gonna just assume, which is bad. Like if you need help setting up, just kind of, there's a ribbon on the bottom with all the controls that you'll need for Zoom. The most important ones are unmute and start video. How to raise your hand, you go to the participants icon, press on that, and you can raise your hand with the icon, or if you're on camera, you can just physically raise your hand to be acknowledged. Like Beth said earlier, if you can, please be present. Please make yourself as comfortable as possible. Find something to drink, or it's cold where I am, so maybe some coffee, hot chocolate, tea to just comfort you. Get a piece of paper to possibly take notes, and we'll do a little bit of breathing so we can all get centered. So grabbing an object to support you could be also a sandwich or toast this morning. And so now we're going to get into just a minute to actually 2 minutes. So I don't want you guys to go like, oh my God, is this going to be, how long is she going to do this? This is a 2-minute breathing exercise. Have any of you been holding your breath? Sometimes we're holding our breath and we don't even know it, right? So some of us might have been watching election returns, holding our breath and not even knowing it. So for 2 minutes, we're gonna just center and just pay attention to this video, which is just very simple, and then come back. Now, feel free to mute your video for this while you get comfortable, while you breathe, right? Some people might want to stretch or whatever. Perfectly fine to mute your video right now. So let's start this. And give me a thumbs up real quick if you can hear it. Just want to make sure. So there's a series of videos, thank you for doing that, on YouTube that are breathe and do nothing. Breathe and think nothing, which is very hard. So how many of you were like, oh my God, this is taking forever? Was anyone thinking that? Oh my goodness, 2 minutes is actually not a very long time. But right now, it can feel like a long time. So I just want us to think about when we get to the place where we're like, oh my God, can this be over? You see, am I the only one that has that thought? Oh my God.
No, I had that thought. This is Beth. I had that. But there is someone saying they really enjoyed it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and this is just still a, interesting time. And we have to give ourselves some grace around it, but also recognize that in our work with parents and with each other, there's a lot going on for us in our minds and their minds as well. And a lot, and it's just tough, right? So let's check in. And if go ahead into the chat, which baby Yoda are you feeling today? Look at these baby Yoda pictures. And in the chat, let me know which one you are connecting to at this moment.
Yeah, people are giving 7s and 8s and 9s. I see a 5. Numbers of 7s.
7. Could someone unmute and tell me what are you seeing in number 7, baby Yoda?
Somebody that chose 7, say what you think that emotion is.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody?
Yeah, anyone can unmute and kind of say why they chose whatever number they chose.
I can go.
Sure, go ahead.
So I chose number 9. And he's kind of just like peeking around the corner, like, hey. I feel like I'm doing that because my video is off and I'm looking at you and I'm like, hey, that's Dara. I took your Afrocentric Parent Café lesson at A Better Way, and I remember you so well, and this work has served me so much, and I'm now doing another parenting class, but I'm looking at number 9 because I'm just like, hey, but you can't see me.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
That is so awesome. And I was thinking about you this morning. No joke. I was like, well, I wonder what she's doing right now. So
We
we'll
gotta
have to
talk.
yeah, we'll have to connect. Anyone else want to talk about why they chose a certain number?
This is Sandra. I chose number 8 because my thoughts were, just looking up toward the sky, being hopeful, looking toward the hills from a cometh my help. So those were my thoughts around why I chose number 8.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sandra. That's pretty awesome. I did a Know Your Rights camp for youth over the winter break, and a lot of ones said number 2 because it looks like he's using the force right there. So a lot of the youngsters were like, I'm number 2, I'm number 2. Yoda's using the force in that picture. But yeah, just something to kind of like think about and check in on with some fun. It's okay for us. It is okay for us to have fun right now still. Is it? Is it? Yes.
It better be. I
Yeah,
hope
I
so.
hope so, right? That's like about all we have, right?
That's right.
So the goals for the Strengthening Families Protective Factor Framework are these that you see on the screen. These are the consistent goals for the framework: that we have strengthened families, that we have optimal child development, and that there is reduced likelihood of child abuse and neglect. So the Strengthening Families Protective Factors Framework is a CANS framework. It is a child abuse and neglect prevention framework at its core. But the language is important. The language that we use to talk to families about the protective factors is really important, which is why it's called Strengthening Families. It's not the child abuse and neglect prevention framework. Because who would go to that? What parent would be like, oh yes, I'm going to sign up for that? Parents don't see themselves as abusers. Parents don't see themselves as neglectors. But if you ask a parent if they'd like to strengthen their family, do you want your family to be strong? Most parents will say, of course. And then we can have the conversation about what does a strong family look like. So all the evidence, if parents have robust protective factors, their children are safe and their families are strong. So the goal specifically for today for this protective factor, which is a knowledge of child development and parenting, are what it means for parents to have knowledge of parenting and child development, actions that they can take and we can take to help strengthen parenting, and then creating a plan or thinking about how you want to implement the plan that you already have for parenting, for helping parents strengthen their own parenting. But all of this is done in the context of relationship. So if I don't know you and I don't trust you and I don't have a relationship with you, pretty much you cannot influence me. So every protective factor, every strategy that we talk about to build protective factors with families is in the context of a relationship that we have. So the quality of our relationships with parents and families and caregivers will determine our effectiveness. How many of you are parents on the call?
Me.
Yes. Raise your hand if your camera is on. If you're a parent on the call, put a 1 on, put a 1 in the chat. If you're a parent, put a 1. So I
Like
get
there's a lot of them.
yes.
And you would express your identity in a transparent and
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. A lot of times, because we're mostly, I think, providers on this call, service providers. Maria, your audio goes in and then comes out. Were you done?
I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
Oh, that's a different. Wait, I have a Maria raised hand, and then I have another Maria talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
helpful in the mom's group. And moving toward disability.
I think there's a,
Something else is happening.
yeah, I'm asking that person to mute them.
Okay.
I think they've done it now.
Okay, very good. So one of the things I want to say too, whenever I train with a lot of providers, some providers, some of you don't have kids, and that's fine. But what I ask you to do is draw on your experience of being a person that was raised. Everyone here was raised by someone. So if we think about who raised us, then we have a context in which to speak to parents about their parenting. So before I got into this work, if I was somewhere and somebody was trying to talk to me about being a parent and they weren't a parent, I'd be like, excuse me, you have no idea. And I know there's other people who would feel like me. So when we don't have children and we're talking about strengthening parenting, we need a place to pull from. And that is being a person that's been raised, a person that's been a child, whoever raised us, and thinking about these things in that context. And we can still have the conversation. It can be a great conversation, right? So,
Right.
go
If I
ahead,
could
Beth.
say, Dara, sometimes I've even told people that don't have children that you have an advantage in that you're not coming with a preconceived idea about how things are done.
Mhm.
You can come with a little bit more openness, not always, but openness and learning coming alongside a parent to figure out how they want to do it. Anyway.
And also reminding me as a parent how certain things may have felt to you as a child. Because that's a perspective that we often do not hear, right? So when I was a child and my parents did this is how it made me feel. And then I'm going to go into my parenting Rolodex of decisions that I've made over the last 21 years and say, oh my God, did I do that?
Yep.
Let me check myself. So I have a 21-year-old son, a 17-year-old son, and a 14-year-old son. And I have spent a lot of time apologizing to my 21-year-old, my test baby, the first one, where I wasn't familiar with the protective factors. I didn't know what that was until he was like 7. And then I started learning. I'm like, okay, I'm getting this thing now, feeling better about being a parent. But there are certain things that I've had to apologize to him for. And most parents a lot of parents regret things, but never say, I'm sorry. And so I've decided I'm going to be that parent that says, you know what, I made a bad choice here or a decision I wasn't sure about, and the consequences I didn't really understand at the time. And I am apologizing to you for that. So let's get into it. This is going to be our first breakout. And so you're going to go into space with another 4 or 5 people. And here's what you're going to talk about. What is being a great parent is part natural and part learned mean to you? Personally, not like for your work, right? Because this is about what do I think about this? How do I get this into who I am? And then how can I talk to families, caregivers, and parents about what this is? So drawing on our own personal experiences first, and then relaying that, having a place in which to draw from to talk to families about this. And for those of you furiously taking notes, this is being recorded, I believe, and also the PowerPoint will be sent to you. So don't worry about writing every single thing down that's on these slides, if that helps.
And I posted the question in the chat too.
Okay, and Leah, are you ready for us? This is going to be our first breakout. We're going to be broke out for about 5 minutes, let you kind of introduce yourselves and talk about what this means to you.
How to raise your child, how to be your child successful, emotionally, socially, and, everything. That's what I understand. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else want to say anything about the breakout room? We're going to also keep confidentiality during this. So when we go into our breakout spaces and you come back, tell about what you learned or what impacted you from the stories, not the story itself. We're going to keep stories private and confidential, but we can talk about what we learned, what we gathered, what may have impacted you about what you heard, what was said. So does anyone else want to unmute, raise your hand, and then go ahead, Ravina.
Okay, hi. We've all agreed in our chat room that just having the child have the basic needs that they need in life and make sure they're in a safe environment and making sure that they're loved and healthy and just being just making sure that they are loved and making sure that the experience that they grow up be good experiences in life, something positive and stuff like that, because nowadays kids don't have the love that they had that we had back in the day. So I'm like, it's a faster time now. Everything is so fast. And I think if we slow down for a few minutes and let the kid, like my grandbaby in the back, he's teaching me things while I'm trying to do this meeting. But I'm paying him attention, paying you attention. We got to multitask. And I have learned that through the school. You have to multitask, because if you can't multitask, you're out. You have to watch this kid in this corner. You have to watch this kid behind, hiding over here. This kid is running over there. You have to be up on it. So yeah, maybe I did a little bit too much talking, but yeah. I think you understand what I'm coming from.
Absolutely, Miss Ravina. Does definitely. Anyone else want to comment? All right. So part natural, part learned. So what's natural to you may not be natural to me, and vice versa, right? So in my becoming a parent, and I've been one for almost 22 years, is there's some things that were very natural to me, but there were some things that I needed to learn. So there were some parenting behaviors that I feel like sometimes when I talk about this, I'm throwing my parents under the bus, but it really is not that. There are some healthy and unhealthy things that happen in all of our families that our parents do. So there were some things that my parents did that were not exactly the healthiest things for kids. So then when I became a parent, I said, I'm not going to do that. How many of you said that? When I become a parent, I'm not going to do and ... whatever your parents did. Okay, how many of you know when you are under stress, you do exactly what your parents did, even if you say you weren't going to do that, because that is what you learned, right? So then when we become adults for ourselves and become parents, some things we have to sometimes we have to unlearn things. And then we have to replace that with something different and something new. So for us, it was like one of the things that I had to unlearn was just like the whole spanking, whooping, physical discipline. I said, I'm not going to do that with my kids, even though I didn't even get spanked that much as a child. It was enough to know I didn't want to do it to my own kids. But what do you do instead of that? And what do you do if you have a family that's what they do? And then when you go visit your family and your 5-year-old is acting out of the wild and everybody looks at you and you got all these eyes on you, like, what are you going to do? So when we talk to parents, families, and caregivers about parenting, what's healthy, what's not healthy, we have to be very careful. And it has to be done in the context of relationship. Because if in culture, right? Because you don't want to offend people. You don't want to tell people the way that they're parenting is wrong. That's wrong. What? No, we can't do that, right? And so how do we talk about behavior that children display that is distressing to parents, that often is connected to a developmental age or stage? And then how do we talk to parents about either correcting behavior or that, it's something that really doesn't need to be corrected. It's just what kids do. And how do we help parents see one versus the other? And how many of us have seen parents act negatively toward their kids just out of sheer embarrassment? Just sheer embarrassment, baby just acting crazy at the store. And everybody's looking at that mom. And that mom is like, uh-oh, I got to do something because now I'm embarrassed because you're acting like that. So now I got to smack you. So everybody else in the store will be like, okay, she did something. And how do we reinforce that as a society? So I've been in spaces where a baby was about to just get walloped. And it was actually at a cafe where we're talking about all of this, and the baby at pickup time was about to get walloped. And I just like kind of went up to the mom and I said, Mom, I just held her hands and I just said, it's okay. It's okay. He's 3. I have 3 sons. It's okay. And I just felt her go like, and in that moment, she didn't wallop her 3-year-old.
That's beautiful.
Because she was embarrassed. Her son was really acting up. He was. But okay, he's 3. So this is all of the factors work together, and we're going to see that in this one too. But this is one when parents get it wrong, it has very serious consequences. So here's the official definition from CSSP, which is the think tank that created the protective factors framework, about what this huge, we could do like a whole 8-hour training on this protective factor, or like a whole semester. Well, some people major in this, right? So this is the official definition according to the Center for the Study of Social Policy. Could I have someone read the beginning and the blue and the yellow?
We're not seeing your slides.
Oh, I didn't, I'm sorry. I'm just talking. Here we go. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Can I have somebody read the intro to this and A and B?
Knowledge of parenting and child development. Parents and those who work with children can benefit from increasing knowledge, understanding of A, physical, cognitive, language, social and emotional development of young children, and B, signs indicating a child may have developmental delay and needs special help.
Thank you. Can I have someone read C, D, and E?
Number C is cultural factors that influences parent practices and perceptions of children. Number D is factors that promote or inhibit healthy child outcomes. And I think that's, yeah, I can't see the rest of number D. And number E, it says how to impact child behavior.
Thank you, Ravina. And
You're welcome.
just look at this. I'm gonna just read this for yourself. I'm gonna give you just like a few seconds to read this for yourself and why I'm saying this protective factor is huge and so important. A lot of times the focus is on my baby isn't walking yet. My baby isn't holding the physical. We pay attention to that because we can see that, right? But what about the cognitive? What is happening for our baby's brains? We're going to talk about that. We're not going to talk so much about language, but we're going to talk a lot about the brain and how that development of the brain governs everything else. And then we have a whole nother protective factor for next month, which is the social and emotional competence of children. So they took that piece and made it a whole nother protective factor because it's that important. So knowing this is all a lot about ages and stages. Like, what is my child supposed to be doing physically, cognitively, being able to communicate with words, whatever language, and then socially and emotionally.
Are we talking about the age, like you said, ages and stages, but all the books, well, the study I've been doing, all kids develop differently.
Absolutely.
You know, they all kids don't learn to walk at the same time. They don't learn to read at the same time. I mean, every kid, like you said, ages and stages can say what they might do at this stage. But who knows? If your child is ready to do it, they're going to do it. And if they're not ready to do it, they're not going to do it. So I believe that, like I said, every child is developed, babies develop differently, mentally, physically, cognitively, every, I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but.
Oh, yes, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
And it's very important that you say that because some people, and we probably talk to parents who says, I know somebody's baby that's doing this and my baby is not doing that. Yep. Or I know somebody, my aunt's this and the baby, right? So there's a lot of comparing that goes on between families and caregivers and parents about what a child might be doing or what a child might not be doing. Yes, there's a range, and in a certain age range, children should be doing certain things, right? Yeah. But, and then we have B. So it goes right into what you said. If the child has a developmental delay, then that, or a cognitive delay, or needs help in one of these developmental areas, knowing the range helps us to determine, does the child need to be screened or assessed? We know, I'm not sure if you know, but children who have language or cognitive, social, emotional, or physical delays are at higher risk of being abused.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Agree.
Right, because parents are expecting that they should be doing something that they literally cannot do.
And you know what? Parents blame it on themselves or the child, and they discipline them. Like you said, they might just take it out on the child. And that's really hard for me to bear because my child is not doing it. But like you said, he might have delays in his not talking, his language and stuff, but it could be twisted that the child is going to be abused, you know, because he's not doing it.
Right. So there's a lot of things like, you know, kids might not be doing a certain thing and they just might not be delayed. They just might not do it yet. Right. So there's a lot that goes into this. But if we have, as parents and caregivers, the correct kind of expectations, and then we are letting the families know about what these stages and ages look like. And then I'm going to skip down to cultural factors that right? So now we have the cultural factors. How does this culture or that culture or whichever culture see the role of children?
That's true.
What is the role of children, right? So then that impacts it. And then I'm just going to skip down to E, which is how to impact child's behavior. Because a lot of this, when you boil it down, parents just want to know, how do I get my child to stop doing something and start doing something? And then we have to say, okay, like back up. But remember, we have to have a relationship. Back up. It's not completely about this behavior. It's about A, B, C, and D. E is just one little part, but E is the part that everybody sees. So when a child is not doing something or doing something that we don't want him or her to do, then that's the part that we see. And so that's the part that a lot of times parents, my son is doing this. How do I get him to stop? My daughter won't do this. How do I get her to start? But the conversation has to be encompassing of all of this. And the expectations and all of this is part of it. I'm going to keep going. So these are just visual representations of the 4 things: the cognitive, language, social, emotional, and physical. These are the things that the 4 areas of child development. Now I want to see what you know. So is that blurry? Can you see that pretty good? So what I want you to do is go to your ribbon for Zoom, and you're gonna annotate. Have you guys ever used this? What you can do is go to your ribbon and go to annotate, and then I want you to write what age you think each one of these strips represent. So this is age 1 to 5, and I want you to write which one you think is 1, which one you think is 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you very much. So I just want to see, this is such a big protective factor. It is really actually kind of impossible for lay folks to know everything for each one of these ages. Now, this is first 5. So we're focusing on 0 to 5. But kids are kids until, I was going to say 18, but I found out that's not true.
It's farther.
Exactly. So what is appropriate? So I'm just letting you guys continue. Just want to give you a chance. Wow, you guys.
I was going to say, this is great. People,
They're
wow.
pretty. Wow, first 5. You guys been doing some good trainings here. People know their stuff on this.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing that this is pretty correct. The first one is the 12 months or a year old. The second one is 3 years old. The third one is 4-year-olds. The fourth one is 5-year-olds, and the last one is 2-year-olds. How would things be different if parents knew just these basics? What would be different?
I think parents would have like less anxiety and feel less pressured to get their kids, up to speed on, what they think they should be doing at a certain time.
Mm-hmm. And this is really basic, right? What if we said, okay, if we had great relationships and then whatever age the child is between 0 and 5, we did like some kind of group activity where we just have the child in the space too, and we just kind of pay attention to what the child does and say, this is what 2-year-olds do. This is what 4-year-olds do. Watch some videos, really kind of just get a basic understanding. for caregivers and parents about what my child is supposed to be doing at this certain time.
I really wish we could just see the spectrum up to 18 because that is where I'm struggling.
Oh yeah, and they have them for yes, I agree. Because those teenagers, there's the similar things happen between youth who are 0 and 5 and youth who are going through like adolescence. It's the same actually things that are happening. The brain is pruning and doing all this work. When my kids were like 10, when my son was 10 years old, my middle son was 10, and my oldest son, my littlest son was 10 and my oldest son was 17. My 10-year-old had more sense than my 17-year-old. My 10-year-old would look at my 17-year-old and be like, what is wrong with you? Because the 17-year-old is pruning and his brain is doing the changes that need to happen for that age. And it's very similar to what's going on with our children when their brains are just developing up to like 5. Beth, I see you unmuted.
I have that same experience with my younger one going, what is wrong with my sister? I just don't understand. And then, of course, she had her turn. And
Exactly. So we're going to keep going. I'm very impressed with how accurate you all were with this. And
Me too.
This is such a, we can do this. It's possible for us in the context of good relationships to have these conversations with parents and caregivers. Like I said earlier, this is a 2-part protective factor. We're still annotating. That's okay. So the first part is knowledge of parenting. Parents understanding their roles in the lives of their children. Why is this important? Somebody tell me this that I haven't heard from yet. Why is parents understanding the roles in their children's lives important?
Very instinctively.
Someone texted security. Someone put in the chat security.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also for stability.
Absolutely. Security and stability. When parents understand their role and have techniques and strategies to deal with the child's behavior appropriately and form positive relationships. So everything that humans do is in the context of relationships. That's why this COVID has been so hard, because the way we cope, they're telling us you can't cope like that because that puts you at risk. And I live in Southern California, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in, because our coping strategy is taken away. Kiana, go ahead.
I think also knowing your role is you'll know how to show up for your child and what areas that you can deal, that you're equipped with, and you'll know how to equip yourself with that.
Absolutely. And then so there's knowledge of parenting. That's how do I impact? How do I develop a relationship? And then knowledge of child development is parents having basic knowledge of human development and child development. So this is about what we already said, realistic expectations and how I can provide appropriate nurturing, supervision, and guidance. So now this is really, before we go to the next thing, I'm excited. I'm getting ahead of myself. So developmental monitoring is that we're watching our kids grow. Caregivers, parents are watching the children grow and just kind of making sure they're on track. But that requires knowing what the track is, right? And kind of checking in. That's why we have these well child visits, right? even if nothing is wrong with you, you go to the doctor, you do the well child so that we can have a baseline of what's going on developmentally for the child. Now, if there could be a delay, then we go to screening. And First Five California and First Five Alameda is very committed to providing the 0 to 5 community with the tools to be able to screen for these delays, because we do not want these children to be abused or neglected because they have these delays. I have a nephew, his name is Ian. He has autism. His mom was not ready to acknowledge that there was something going on. The rest of the family saw what was going on, but she had to see for herself. One time she left my nephew with a friend for 2 weeks. So she was only supposed to be babysitting Ian for like the weekend and didn't come back for 2 weeks. And so my mom was like, all, you know, she was very angry. That's an understatement. How can she do this? And what's wrong with her? And I can't believe your brother chose her. Like all of this craziness. And I just said, Mom, she is not ready. She has to face what she needs to face. And then we will help her get the help that she needs for Ian. So then after that's when all the help started. That's when she got all the services. And I said, you know, Mom, she picked a good friend to leave him with. We got to give her credit for that. She picked somebody that she knew would take care of him and loved him. Was she wrong? Yes. But let's look at the rest of her circumstances. So he was screened and he got the help that he needed. But it's not easy for parents who have children with disabilities or delays it's just very difficult. My son was diagnosed with asthma when he was a baby, my oldest son. And the guilt that I had, like, I feel like I did something wrong for him to have asthma. So the parent guilt, when we're talking about all of this, is something that we have to consider and have compassion for.
I just put in the chat, Dara, the links to Help Me Grow here in Alameda County and the phone number for the Help Me Grow line. And we do have a developmental screening program that families can sign up for to be sent a ages and stages questionnaire at different periodicities for children to have consistent and screening. So there you go.
Yes. How many of you are familiar with Help Me Grow?
I'm actually a Help Me Grow care coordinator for San Francisco.
Hey, thank you for being on here. Do you want to do like a little commercial? Are you like okay with that?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually kind of brand new to the team, so I'm one of 3 care coordinators, and we basically support. We get referrals from sites, from general hospital, from outside providers, and we just support the families with whatever they need, from Medi-Cal to linking them to DGRC or San Francisco School District, helping them if they need to go through their private insurance. We walk them through that whole thing. So that's what I do.
Thank you so much for being on the call. Yeah, we always, go ahead.
Put your website on the chat too.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for showing up from San Francisco. So what I'm gonna do now, thank you for that. That's like, we always get what we need, right? I just love synchronicity. So what I'm gonna show now is a video from the Center for the Developing Child, which is a think tank that is based at Harvard. And so this video is a little bit around the science of neglect, but what it's really focusing on is child development and how neglect disrupts child development, and what is our role in making in interrupting this. Okay. So
We can't see your screen yet, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think I made it big for her to talk and then there we go. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yes, so this is the science of neglect, and it's really about how neglect disrupts the child development. And remember, this framework is a child neglect and prevention, neglect of abuse and neglect and abuse prevention framework. Sorry, you guys. So I'm going to start it now. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear.
Yes, we hear it.
Everyone in a community has a vested interest in everyone else's children because everyone else's children determine the next adult population that makes for a successful society. Built into our biology is the need to have responsive interactions with adults.
Neglect for children is when they don't get what the brain is expecting to get, what the child is expecting to get, what we are biologically prepared and waiting for, which is input from those around us.
It's this back and forth serve and return interaction that literally shapes the architecture of the brain.
Serve and return begins when a child looks at something or observes something, makes an utterance, and that represents the serve. And the return is when the parent notices the child doing these things and responds to the child.
Under conditions where serve and return is broken, you literally are pulling away what is the essential ingredient of the development of human brain architecture.
It was a really compelling series of experiments where they started by videotaping the mother and the baby engaging in cooing and smiling. And then they asked the mother to basically put on a blank face and not respond at all. When a baby is not attended to, that is a sign of danger to the baby biologically. So the stress systems become activated.
In a brain that is constantly bathed in stress hormones, not that's up and down, that comes with normal development, certain key synapses, the connections between nerves, fail to form, and critical regions of the brain.
So neglect both fails to provide the stimulation that's needed to develop the basic architecture, and when it's at a certain level, is one of the most potent activators of the stress biology of a young child. So you get a double whammy.
Science points to 4 categories of this spectrum of neglect. The first category would be what's called occasional inattention, where children experience responsiveness most of the time, but occasionally adults don't respond. There's no harm in that, and in fact, there's probably some benefit.
A child can learn to self-soothe and explore the environment, and all of those opportunities build brain architecture.
The second category, scientists would call chronic understimulation, is where on a regular basis, children have less interaction with the adults around them than is needed for healthy development.
Those children typically, when provided with enriched learning opportunities and more typical levels of serve and return, will show catch-up.
The third category is what science would call severe neglect in a family where not only are there prolonged periods of inattention and lack of responsiveness, but often also associated with not being fed enough, not being bathed enough, not having basic needs met.
Neglect is a huge problem in the U.S. Children are much more likely to be neglected than they are to experience any other kind of maltreatment.
We see the child really being at risk for much more substantial kinds of deficits down the road that don't necessarily get easily fixed or ameliorated. This is where we really need to think about more complicated and often more intensive strategies to help undo those effects.
The fourth category, called severe neglect, generally found in institutional settings, is a result of children living in kind of warehoused type situation in orphanages.
And it doesn't have to even be as extreme as orphanages. It can be experiences that are regretfully occurring in many, many parts of our country.
Often institutional care in this country is under the euphemistic name of transitional care or temporary care or assessment facilities.
If you think about what institutional or residential care would look like for an infant, where there's somebody new coming onto the shift every 8 hours, it really alters the development of the child's brain architecture and other aspects of the child's development.
We have the potential to change children's developmental trajectories.
Interventions can apply to parents, to foster parents or adoptive parents, child care settings, Head Start settings, and other kinds of settings. And really, what they're about is attuning people to the serve and return process.
Neglecting young children is neglecting the foundations of a healthy next generation. The community pays a huge price later in terms of the problems of the next generation, whether it be educational achievement, economic productivity, good citizenship, the ability to parent the next generation. All of the things that have to do with a healthy, prosperous society.
Okay, so any thoughts or reactions? You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute, raise your hand and unmute and say what you thought about this.
I can go.
Go ahead.
I'm so grateful to have access to this class and this information. I feel grateful to have this information, and it just makes me feel like as a system, I'm thinking in terms of education, as a system, we're getting it wrong. And if we have this information, then why aren't we supporting parents in schools with this information from the beginning and in the hospitals from the beginning, so that we're not trying to figure out why, and I don't know, it's a little personal to me, why Black kids aren't graduating from high school.
Yes.
If we had this information, if we have this information, this is what teachers and parents should be working on in the first 5 years, not just in this setting, but systematically. And it's kind of frustrating, honestly, for me, because I work in family engagement in parallel with OUSD, and I see so many kids not getting where they need to get. And it hurts my heart, but this is what's important. This is what we need to do. And even, I understand from the younger level, but I need to figure out also for parents, or try to figure out how to incorporate this. If you find this out later, after your kid is 5, if your kid is 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, where can you come in and begin to make a shift in middle adolescence? So this was very powerful information.
Thank you, Leanna. It is. And we have a lot going on in the chat too.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, people agreeing and so appreciating what you just said. And the idea of brain architecture, someone mentioned, and the foundational pieces to be able to build a strong structure. Yeah.
And so they talked about serve and return. If you had to boil serve and return down into a different phrase that you talk to parents about, what would you say that is? If you had to talk about serve and return, how would you talk about it? Put it in the chat if you would come up, what kind of phrase would you coin? Or what have you heard other people say?
kind of feel like it's a call and response.
It could be call and response. What else could it be? Sow and reap. Yes. What else could it be? Mirroring. What else could it be? Modeling. What else could it be? Paying attention to, right? It could be engaging. Someone said attuned. I love attuned. That's a wonderful, wonderful word. It's around like, are you feeling what your child is feeling? Are you capable? Or do you have the capacity to be in touch and attuned with your child or the children that are in your care? What gets in the way of this? So this is where all these protective factors start building on each other. What gets in the way? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that 99% of moms who have a baby, whether it's a biological baby or a baby that they chose in the beginning, want to do the best job and see themselves doing the best job that they can and loving that baby and making sure that baby has everything that baby needs. Something gets in the way of being able to be attuned. Something gets in the way of being able to do the serve and return. And it's different somethings. But in your experience as a service provider, as a human being, as a parent or caregiver, what has gotten in the way of you giving 100% to the children in your care? So this is what I mean about, we can look all day about what the parents that we're working with are not doing or what is getting in the way of them being the best parents that they could be. But we have to boil this down and distill it for us. What gets in the way of us giving 100% to the children in our care? Sometimes I'll go first. My own junk, my own baggage, my own unresolved issues, my own stress. So this is where the protective factor starts stacking. So if I don't have resilience and I cannot manage my stress, it makes it very hard for me to be attuned. It makes it very hard for me to do the serve and return, because I just really want you to just go sit down and go get on your tablet and just, did you see the baby in a carrier in front of the TV? Did you see that part of the video?
Yes.
Right? Do you see kids who know how to operate the iPad at like less than 1?
Yes.
Right? So if we don't have the capacity, and right now, y'all know capacity is limited. And we don't, as parents, have the capacity to say, okay, let me focus on my kid, what they need right now. Let me be attuned. A lot of stuff has to be going on for me to be able to get to that place so I can focus on the needs of my child. That's where we come in. And we go, Mom, that's where the relationship, Mom, how are you doing? Dad, how are you doing? And this is where our managers and supervisors, when they say, what did you do today? And you say, I spoke to 3 moms. And they say, okay. They don't say, oh my God, you only spoke to 3 moms? Yeah, I spoke to 3 moms. Because all 3 had a lot going on. And they're like, oh, that's great. When we're able to shift to there, we're talking to 3 moms in one day for 8 hours is okay. And we're not getting rushed and shamed into doing a whole lot more, like numbers. And the quality of the relationships that we can put together with families is so important. Leanna, I see your hand. You're muted though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I am probably the only family engagement person. I am the only family engagement person in my org. And like, it might be true for some folks that their supervisors understand, but what about when your supervisors don't understand? How do you explain that? Because it makes perfect sense to me that I'm always experiencing parents in crisis, but when you're kind of with an organ or with someone who wants hard numbers, how do you explain that 3 parents in 8 hours is about right?
Anyone?
Yes, anyone, please help me advocate for parents.
This is Beth. I was going to say, show them this video, but you probably don't want to do that now since your supervisor's the one that will be watching. However, I'm going to think about some of our other videos, and there's this thing called reflective practice that a lot of supervisors should be doing that are supervising people that are doing direct service work. It's called reflective supervision, reflective practice supervision. And we've not had a training in it for a long time, Leanna, so this conversation is making me think maybe we want to do one. Anyway, Dara, we could talk a little bit more about that perhaps and see if we can make something like that happen and specifically invite it and record it and invite people to attend. So yeah, so that's great. And please, any of you that please put that on your evaluation. I think these kinds of things are great ideas and why we want to provide. Yes. So that's one idea.
Yes, you have put it on the evaluation. Make sure people know that there's a need for it, but also too, like before I started doing like the consulting and all the training, I was a regional parent engagement coordinator, and I would be maybe talking to maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 4 parents. They would work with us to do the Parent Café. So I was kind of leading the team for the state. And then you can't just call parents and be like, okay, here's your assignment. Bye-bye.
Exactly.
No, you have to, hey, how are you doing? How are your kids doing? Do you have what you need? It's a conversation and it's a relationship that we're building. So then when I build the give me time to build the relationship, give me time to nurture the relationship. But I think another thing that we can be doing in direct service, we have to let people who are making decisions know the time it actually takes to make a difference. So this is how long I actually spent on the phone. This is how long it took me to find the appropriate resource for this person. It took me 3 hours on the phone, on hold, on this, doing that. We have to say that. So when they start asking us, well, why, and you have to account for your time, we have to be more specific and have more evidence, because clearly just saying it isn't working. We have to show it. It took this amount of time to work with this family. And then they'll say what they are going to say, but we can do a better job at showing our own evidence about what's happening. Parenting then and now. So sometimes you will have, you'll be in conversations with parents about maybe some of the healthy behaviors and unhealthy behaviors. But we also have technology, and we have advanced magnificently over these last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But I'm going to show you some of the things that was like expert parenting advice. And you're going to be like, oh, wow. Okay. All right. Here's some of the first expert parenting advice. Can you see it? You will notice that none of these pictures will have anybody but white people, because back in these times, Black people and people of color were not represented in these magazines and things like that. So just want to say that. A hell baby is a spoiled baby. How many people have heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Don't hold that baby too much. So that one is enduring. Ignoring your child is the way to build good character. Anybody ever heard of that one? This was expert parenting advice in the 20s and the 10s. Start solid foods at 2 days old. Some of your faces like, what? Yes, this was parenting advice in the 60s. That wasn't that far away ago. 1940s, stop coddling boys. That means stop hugging them, stop showing them emotion, allowing them to show emotion. And then we say, like, why do men ... Why do boys ... Because it was expert parenting advice. This one, giving kids coffee. Really? And in the 1950s, there was like this movement around baby proofing. Like if you baby proof, that was a sign of being a lazy parent because you were not teaching your child the boundaries that they should have to not do this and not do that and all this kind of stuff.
I really want these sources because this really gives a lot of context to the nonsense that I've heard. Like, I need to be able to pull these up and show them to people how ridiculous they are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and I didn't even do them all. I just did the few of them. All right. It's never too early to potty train. Now, potty training is one, that one is still controversial. And a lot of kids, especially boys, I'm going to just be really real. A lot of boys have been killed around potty training issues because parents get so irate and so angry around the accidents. And boys and girls are able to potty train at different periods of time, but accidents happen up until 5, and for some kids even later. And then some kids are gonna be bedwetters, and that's gonna happen. This is one that's really important. Parents have a lot of pressure on them to get these babies potty trained because if you send, well, it used to be like if you send a baby to early care and education, unpotty trained, it costs more. But if they're potty trained, it costs less. So there was a financial incentive to potty train children earlier than what was appropriate. But this is still an issue in a lot of communities, right? So this is something that we can be talking about. It's never too early. Actually, it is too early. Seriously, no cuddling.
I also just wanted to say that there are some institutions that will not take a 3-year-old unless they're fully potty trained. So that might be putting the pressure on parents to potty train a child before that child is ready too.
Yes. And I thought that was like, there was some rules around that, right? I guess there's still some gray area around that, which is bad. That is not good.
I was looking at programs for my daughter, and there was one program I saw. They said it's a 3 to 5 class, and they're like they have to be fully potty trained, and if they had too many accidents, they would probably talk to the parent about finding a different program for them. So yeah, there are some programs out there that are still, pretty hit and miss and serious about the potty training.
Terrible. Denise, did you want to say something?
I was going to say that's so true what she's saying. I'm a director, and where I work at, we work on potty training, but we take the cues from the children. But there is programs, like she say, out there when the kids age out of my program at 3 to go to Head Start or to another program. The families that, we were saying, can you help us a little bit more at home? Because you can tell if they were doing it at home versus not doing it at home. So a lot of times we're doing it at school, but they're not doing it at home. So when they age out, they would call me back and say, you were right. They said that, Johnny had to be, semi-potty trained to stay in school. If he had too many accidents, I was gonna have to come pick him up, or I might have to find another center for him. So like the lady was saying, that is true. They will not take your child if your child is not potty trained or semi-potty trained. If they're able to pull up pull up and pull down their pull-ups and change their own pull-ups, that's fine. They'll coach them, but like if they BM, they're gonna get on the phone and call the parent. If the parent can't come, they were like, okay, what's the next person in line? Grandma, auntie, uncle, cousin, whoever could come and help him clean himself. Yeah, because they say it's a liability on the teachers. That's why they don't, feel like they want to potty train a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So these are real issues affecting real people, real parents.
I also wanted to say I've worked at a program too where a child was 3, but they kept him in the 2-year-old class just because the parents weren't potty training him at home. So he wasn't even moving forward with his age group.
Yeah, they held my brother back in preschool because he wasn't potty trained, and his twin sister held her back too because they're twins. Because he wasn't potty trained.
Oh my God.
But isn't that called discrimination?
I mean, it's called something like.
Okay,
something.
now this is a mess.
That's terrible.
Well,
so we have a lot
situation.
of work. Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say I have a situation. There was a little boy at a center I used to work at, and the little boy, he was not potty trained, but they didn't keep him back. They moved him over to the 3-year-old room. So he was over there for a day, and so he BM'd on himself. The teacher did eventually. She did clean him, but so then the next day when he came, well, she told mom what happened, and she said, well, if this keep happening, you're gonna have to keep him home. And I was like, wow. So the little boy came next day, he BM'd on himself again. So the teacher shared with the mom, well, he's gonna have to stay at home until he's potty trained. And mom, Hispanic, and she couldn't speak very good English. So she came to me and she told me, what was said. She said, I'm gonna keep him home. She said, I said, well, how long do you think you could keep him home? She said, well, I'm gonna go to work, but I'm gonna have somebody work with him. And then when I come home, I'm gonna work with him. So I said, well, do you need, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, or whatever? So I said, well, I don't know how long it's gonna take Juan. So I'm not you, but I'm gonna give Juan like 2 weeks to see how he does. If he does well, bring him back as soon as he does well. She took little Juan home, and little Juan was potty trained in 3 days. He came back, and little Juan did not BM, did not pee on himself, anything. I don't know what she did, but it was magic. I don't know if it was just like talking to, and I could tell that he didn't get spanked is because when he went to the bathroom, he went on his own. So I think it was just a little bit more encouraging on, the mom's part and on, his family at home, I believe. Because when he came back, it was just like nothing. Because I can tell when kids, I've been in this field so long, I can tell when kids are being pressured to be potty trained, or I could tell the kids that get spanked because you could say something or your hand could move and they'll jump. So little Juan didn't even do any of that. And I was just so impressed. So when I saw the mom that day, I said, what did you do? She says, I just told him that he has to go because I have to go to work and I have to pay the rent and we have to eat. So if he don't, if he want his little special treats, he's going to have to go to the potty because mom's not going to be able to buy him. I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you for that. Yeah, so it was a positive experience.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you all for sharing like the experience just around this one piece of development. One. But it encompasses so much: cultural norms, standards, how the system is working or not working, how fear of a certain thing causes the system to act or not act. But what I heard you say at the end is around following the child's lead. So if we follow the lead of the child, and sometimes their lead is not on like my timeline as a parent, like I need you to do this right now. But the child is like, I'm not ready to do that right now. The child should win. And when there's that tug of war, everybody loses, but the child loses the most, right? So it's 11:30. I haven't given you guys a break. Could we do like a 5-minute break? You can mute your screen, use the bathroom, do whatever you need to do, and then come back at 11:35.
Sounds
mamas. All right, we're going to continue. We're over time.
Okay.
Let me share, because I want to get you guys into one more breakout room before we end. So we did the parenting then, and so we progress. We learn better, we do better. We have all this science. We know so much more about human development and the brain and what's good for our brains, what nourishes our brains. And so there's two frameworks. So that was the then, this is the now. And there's two frameworks that basically I want to just introduce. They go right along with knowledge of parenting and child development protective factor, about what it means, what this protective factor means. So for this one, it's the Centers for Disease Control. I think they're going to be getting their credibility back soon. Safe, stable, nurturing relationships, right? So from the parent perspective, this is safety. Someone already said this in the chat. Stability, someone already said this in the chat. And then nurturing, right? So that child is free from fear. That's interesting. Because fear is a tactic that's used to get compliance, all right, for children in a lot of, I'm going to say every culture, right? So we'll talk about that maybe another time. Free from fear and secure from physical or psychological harm within their social and physical environments. Stability in this sense is about predictability. Kids know what's going to occur. They know this is what's going to happen. This happens. I get food. I go to sleep. This is when things happen. And so that helps children develop. Nurturing, which is completely opposite of that then stuff about not holding the baby and spoiling the baby and all this kind of stuff. Totally opposite. The extent to which the parent and caregiver is available and sensitively and consistently responds to meet the child's needs. And a lot of times that means you have to, touch the child. You must hold the child, hold the baby, pick the baby up, comfort the baby, right? But these things we know extend into past infancy too. The 21-year-olds who will come get in the bed with me. He's like 6'4", right? There's no room for me when he's in it. But he still needs these things from us, right? No matter what age they get. And then this one is the one, this slide is the Harvard slide around what parents need to do and what kids need. Time and commitment. The quality of the time spent with the child on their behalf. Resources, financial and psychological, emotional and social. And then skills and knowledge. And remember, all of this, how do you do this without a relationship? You can't. This is why early care and education providers play such an important role. I just remember our provider, we went to, first we did like an in-home provider, like what is it called? Family child care. And I love Miss Ruth, but sometimes she would be in my business. But it was good because she'd be asking me, oh, I noticed. And so when you're in somebody's home, when you're bringing your child to someone's home, there's a different relationship, right? That she was able to build with us, where she was able to be more curious and ask, I think, more probing questions than maybe if we were at a center. But even in a center, if the providers are skilled at building relationships and they have the time and they're encouraged to do this, they are in such a wonderful position to talk to parents about what's going on. One of the best providers that we had, and it was at a center, Miss Van Osdal, Miss Janice and Miss Van Osdal, 2 of my 3 kids had them. And Miss Van, I dropped off my son and I ran out of the classroom. And she said, you can't do that. And I was like, why? Why not? He's gonna cry. And she was like, when you do that, you're teaching him not to trust you. And I was like, oh my God. So she said, this is how you drop him off. You bring him in, walk. She just did this with him. She held his hand like she was me and came in the door. And then she walked over to the sink and, washed the hands. And then she got down on the one knee, and then she had me get down on the one knee, and she told me what to say to him. I'm about to leave, but I'm gonna come pick you up. Blah 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 when school is over. And I was like, okay. And so he still cried when I left, but she taught me that you can do a drive-by, which is what I was trying to do. Because I didn't want to deal with all the crying and stuff, the separation anxiety. So that's just an example of how providers can really impact in how parents and caregivers interact with children. So what I'm about to do now, I'm going to go through these kind of fast, but I want you to notice these cards. These are cards. And I'm just asking you some questions while you read them. So you read them while I ask questions. What do babies this age, I am new. What do babies this age do that kind of gets parents a little frustrated or tired or whatever? What are they doing that is kind of challenging?
Not sleep.
Not sleep. What else? Somebody said cry. Not sleeping and crying. Changing diapers. Yes. So what these cards are, the baby
hungry all the time.
Hungry all the time. Don't be a breastfeeding mom. You're basically walking around with the baby like this. You can't see me like the baby like everywhere you go. Right? So
or just not want to take the bottle.
Don't want to take the bottle. Don't want to take the bottle from certain people. Right. Elizabeth, did you say something?
I said they're very colicky at that age.
They can be colicky.
Colicky, yeah.
Right. So, but all of this is what? Tell me the word. All of it is
normal.
Thank you. It's all normal. Oh, mom, you are exhausted. So yes, that's normal. Right. Oh, he has his days and nights mixed up. He thinks it's daytime at night and stays up all night and then wants to sleep all day. That's pretty normal. Right. So having these expectations, tempering them, and then being able to provide support for families and for caregivers while they're going through this is a tough stage. It's a new baby. You're all excited, but then you come home and you go like, oh my God, right? This is kind of hard, right? I'm going to go to this next stage. So this baby is saying, nurture me, everything I'm doing. is because I need to be connected to you and I need you to nurture me. Every single thing that I do, everything that I do, my whole purpose for right now in this little body that smells all good and all of this stuff that we love about babies is so that you will nurture me. Nurture me, nurture me, nurture me. That means hold me, talk to me, pay attention to me, take me wherever you go. Don't leave me in a room without you. Just be connected to me at all times, right? Okay. Age 1. What are babies at this age doing that's challenging to parents?
Putting things in their mouth.
Putting things in their mouth. What else?
Pull out stuff.
Pulling things out of the cabinets, drawers, etc.
Exploring.
Yes, they are just, somebody said, getting into things, putting themselves into constant danger. Yes. Yes. My mom always says, God protects babies and fools, right? Yes. Because babies, they're
That's hysterical.
Yes. And so but what do we, these are things, this is why babies are doing this, because they are learning. Everything is new. They're exploring. And one of the 2 ways that they are really exploring is touch and taste. Right? So having parents understand when they put this thing in their mouth, they have no idea that it's toxic or poison or any of this stuff. It's like a thing I need to figure it out what it is by this way of doing it, which is why baby proofing is so important, which is why having all the locks and the stuff in the electron, all of that, right? Because they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They're learning their environment. But if I'm a mom that's tired, if I'm a mom that work at night and I got to sleep in the day, if I'm a single mom and I don't have anybody to help me, I'm not going to be happy with a baby doing all this. Even though it's normal, I'm going to be really frustrated and I might just get the pack and play and make the baby stay in there a long time with the iPad, which is not good. Okay, so helping families understand this. All right, what's going on at this age that's challenging? 2, terrific 2s.
Everything mine.
Mine, yes, they own it. They own the world.
No.
No is the word. No.
Yeah.
And testing the limits.
Wants attention.
Yes.
And they ask a lot of questions.
Extreme emotions.
Extreme emotions, right? They have these emotions. They don't know what to do. Like when they're jealous or clingy, or like if somebody has something that they want, or you're in the store and they put all this candy right at their eye level, and then you tell them they can't have any, and then they act kind of out of control. They don't have practice at all with emotions. They get everything that they get from us. They see us, they're learning. They're gonna mess up. And it's overwhelming because so much that they want to do, we're telling them no. And then they just tell us what we've been telling them. You know, they just are reflecting and mirroring and modeling back what they're hearing. And I want, and that's mine. They're saying that a lot. So, and then it seems like challenging, like they're challenging parents, but it's really them just learning. They're just learning. How about number 3, age 3? What's going on here that is getting kids in trouble at this age? Anybody?
Adventurous.
They're adventurous. They're also learning, but they're learning with their whole bodies, right?
Exactly.
There's the slide. I was gonna say I didn't see the slide.
Yes, yes.
What I've noticed with 3-year-olds is that they have these 2-year-old emotions, but bigger words. So instead of with the tantrums, you're getting every other word that they're thinking and feeling too.
Yeah, and they start kind of like negotiating kind of a little bit.
Yeah,
like
that's
trying
true.
to, they start kind of like wanting to make a deal with you. And you're like,
That's
you know,
true.
if I do this, you know, they start like actually negotiating. How many people here like grew up in church, grew up going to
I did.
church? And how many, mostly boys, got in a lot of trouble at church because they could not sit down for 2 hours straight, right? This is like they're all kids, 3 years old, they have to move. They have to. It's part of who they are. They can't just be still all the time. If they're awake, they're moving. I had one son, my middle son, he would fall asleep at random places in the house. Just, he would be in the hallway, sleep. He would be in his room, but not in the bed, on the floor, sleep. Because he was always moving. And then when it was time, he just would wherever he was. But they are experiencing the world and they have to do it with their whole bodies. How do we explain this to families? How do we explain this to parents, that everything they pick up is going to be a toy? Even if it's not a, you ever say, that's not a toy? That's not a toy. Don't play with that. Well, to them, it is a toy. And everything is about playing.
All the children, they learn from play. Yeah.
They learn from play. So if they're, you know, whatever they get is going to be a toy. 4, what's happening at 4?
More inquisitive.
More inquisitive, yeah. And if I'm just like tired all the time, I can't handle the curiosity, and inquisitiveness is a trigger for a lot of parents. The why all the time. Like, you got to justify, I'm not justifying my existence to no 4-year-old. That's actually not what they're doing. They just really legitimately want to know the answer. And they also need to be challenged. Anybody else want to kind of talk about the 4s? What you see in the 4s?
A lot of sensitivity is what I.
Oh, yeah, lots of sensitivity. And they know when you are mad, they know, you know, they kind of start figuring out your energy and your moods.
Lots of emotions, Leah said.
Yeah, they start to repeat things back to you that may or may not be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say they kind of test boundaries.
Yeah. Yep.
And also they understand the environment. Sometimes we say, you know, you gotta go like take nap, like go night-night, and then they express, they say, that's not nighttime, that's a daytime, you know. That's
They're like, what are you trying to do to me right now? Right?
Daughter like 4 years old. Every time I say like go night-night, I want her to take a nap. That's what I mean. And then she say, that's not a nighttime, that's a daytime. And then I just laughing, you know, that's hilarious.
Yes, they start getting all this sense, and you're like, who are you? And then 5, what's happening here when the children start turning 5?
My 5-year-old wants to do everything on her own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Independent.
Independence. And
Totally. Another thing that happens for caregivers and for parents, a 5-year-old teenager, yep. Another thing that happens too is sometimes we're rushing them because they got to go to kinder, or we're rushing them to do things, and we are maybe forgetting a little bit that they're still like babies.
Are you all done, Amia?
They're only been on the earth 5 years.
Go back in there.
They only been on the earth 5 years. So a lot of things, most things are still very new to them. And so even though they're going to go to kinder and they're going to go to school, we should remember that they're still a baby, and not to rush their childhood.
I have another one. My daughter, when I tell her she can't do something, she'll go and show me that she can touch the light switch, and she'll say, "Mom, I'm bigger."
Oh my God, that's so cute.
I'm like, "Yes, you are bigger." And then I touch the top of the door, that swing. I said, "When you can touch up here."
You move the goalpost, right? I mean, I have my youngest son really believed that he should be able to do everything my oldest son would do when they were younger. And he was like 16 and he was like 11. Like, well, Elijah does this. And I'm like, but he's 16, right? So the main strategy, Sandra, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say also they start having their own set of friends, their own little peers, and they kind of want to get away from mom a little bit, and those little kisses that they give them, they're like, I want to go play with my friends. So their parents are like, what? Wait a minute, my baby is growing up.
Yeah, like they have some autonomy, right? Yeah. So the major strategy for knowledge of parenting and child development is to strengthen parenting, which is providing guidance, role modeling, and information on parent and child development, including special support around challenging behavior, because we know the challenging behavior is what get a lot of kids caught up. And so that's something that we really, really want to address. We're running out of time, but I feel like I loved our discussion today. I appreciate so much the sharing and just the positiveness of the call today, and us bringing all of our experience, our personal stories. And we're going to get the whole PowerPoint, but this piece right here is something that I really want you to think about. And if we had a little bit more time, we would have went in breakout rooms for each one of these everyday actions. But when you're compiling your strategy, when you're thinking about how you want to build this protective factor with families, these everyday actions are the areas where I want you to really focus. How are you modeling appropriate interactions with children? How do we, especially in Zoom time, and then eventually we're going to come out of Zoom, but how would we do that? What is a way we can do that? Providing resources and information on child development. How can we do that in an appropriate and engaging way? I'm sorry, y'all. People need to stop wasting all this money on these pamphlets.
Here, here.
Because where do they go?
The trash.
We need to stop killing those trees, right? Because even if I read that, in real time when something is going on, I'm not like, oh my God, where's that pamphlet? Oh, where that pamphlet from the doctor's office? What? Who's doing that? Nobody. Right?
Right.
The next one, encourage exploration of parenting issues and concern. Inside of the context of a trusting, respectful, mutually respectful relationship, it's possible to do that, because we can ask questions like, well, what if you didn't get spanked as a child? Or what if this didn't happen? Or what do you think might occur if, right? What do you think you might be setting your child up for if you do this or if you don't do that? In the context of a relationship, we can have that kind of conversation. Leanna?
Yeah, I have a question about, like, what if you're talking to a challenging parent? Because, right, the basis is the trust and everything. So you get through that, and then you say something like, well, what if you weren't spanked? And that parent is like, oh no, because I had to be spanked. Or, oh no, because, like, what if you get a person that has a strong personality we tend to have strong personalities that people think are aggressive, but I don't take it that way. But if you do have someone that has a strong personality and they're like, oh no, this was right, and they like stand on it, how do you then kind of break through that?
So I've seen this happen in action. The best time I saw this happen was when I was at a cafe and we were at all a table and we were on a spanking conversation. And one of the parents shared about how it made her feel to get beat and how that impacted her life. That didn't know the other parent who was like a spanker and was a defender. And it may take, if this is a cultural norm and a generational norm, it is going to take a number of conversations. It's not going to be no one and done conversation. That parent is also going to have to see that there are kids out here that have never been spanked, that are okay, that are productive, that have productive lives, right? So, and then like, we can't use statistics. They don't really work, you know, especially now. But most children who end up in like juvie and a lot of like the population that end up in prison have had abuse and neglect in their background, and spanking in their, and beating, not spanking, but beating in their backgrounds. So it's framing the context of not just what you are doing, but what are we setting our kids up for when we do that. And we can't be judgmental when we talk about it. Oh, I get it. I understand. That happened to me too. Yeah. But it's a series of conversations. Let me keep going. The next one, when you're thinking about your strategy for this, is providing opportunities for parents to try out these new parenting strategies like Miss Van did for me, and then address parenting issues from a strength-based perspective. I know you love your kids, you want the best for them. And then so here's like parent education nights. That's not specific enough. Be more specific about what you want to do. So you're going to get this form to be like thinking about and be able to fill out later on, or when I send it to Leah to upload. But I just want to say thank you for hanging over. We went to 12:03, and I'm going to turn it back over to Beth.
Oh, Dara, this was so great. I wrote in the chat, I just am delighted to look at people's faces when we all start talking about the children and the developmental things, and to see people smiling and laughing, and what lucky children and families are in your care because of the kind of love and enjoyment I see in your faces, even during this time. So that was just a joy. And thank you, Dara, so much for all your gifts, and
thank you.
Not just your knowledge, but your delivery, the way you attend, and you feel like you see people and see them. You know, it's that whole idea of doing for others what you want others to do unto others.
Mm-hmm.
Do that parallel process so lovely. And we're just so grateful to all of you for joining us. And please don't forget to do your evaluation that will be sent to you, and then also the 3-month evaluation. Let us know what else you want to hear. Clearly, we may be scheduling something around reflective supervision for the springtime, and we'll be sure to let you know more about that. And thank you, everyone, for attending.